So, one of you emailed me with a question, very specific question regarding a scenario in Make that's supposed to get Instagram posts from an account and then get information about those posts in terms of views and reach and likes and comments, and store that information probably for some further analysis of the Instagram account. And it got me thinking because this question came through an email, and one way of doing this, of course, would be just simply responding to that email and giving the answer to the specific person. But I honestly think there's way more value in wrapping up the answer in more general terms and kind of solving this problem for all of you who may encounter something similar. And this also got me thinking in terms of kind of future of my content. And I would like to focus on two actually separate parts. I would like to have the main channel where there are more kind of scripted or thought through videos. And then I would like to have a second channel where I kind of take my progress or kind of document my daily progress, what I'm doing, where I'm moving through, and also give you guys some value. And I think the opportunity for this value is actually to get your questions and get, for instance, some specific problems that you have with Make scenarios, and then solving those problems for you. So you don't need to do it on your own, basically, and you don't need to pay anything or anything like that. You just, get the answers that you're looking for. So feel free under this video, under this comment, feel free to write any questions or inquiries, or you can of course use the email that's in the YouTube description. And now let's get into this. In this video, I would just want to go through this scenario that I got sent from Ignacio. Hopefully I'm not butchering your name. It's possible that I am. Sorry for that. So basically, what is this scenario supposed to be doing, right? So it's using Graph API and HTTP requests, and it's supposed to get this is ID of an Instagram account, of one of my Instagram pages, and then it's supposed to get the ID of all the posts. In this request that I got sent, it's limited to 2 of them, and then after that it will parse the JSON, it will iterate through it, so it will separate the different posts into different bundles so we can work with them separately. And then after that, it will send an HTTP request again to the Graph API, trying to get other metrics. So we're trying to get reach, views, like, comments, shares, saved, etc. And then again, work with the data. Now, what the problem is with this scenario, or the question, I guess, that I got, is that it's not behaving as expected. And let me just quickly show you what happens. So we call the first request and we get some data. So in this case, because in this request, we limited the amount of data that we're getting 2 posts, and we're getting the ID of the post, we're getting the media type, timestamp of when this post was created, and that's it. Now, this works very well. The next step, we're separating the data that we're getting into multiple bundles. So we're basically taking the 2 posts and making a bundle out of each one of those posts, which again, logically makes a lot of sense, right? Because then we send another request for each one of the posts to get the detailed metrics that we're trying to get. So nothing wrong in here. We have 2 bundles, again, because in here we limited the amount of results that we are getting to 2. If we didn't limit it, we would get 25 probably, because that's the Graph API pagination limit, and either we would need to raise it in the request or we would need to paginate. Now, in this request, Again, nothing fundamentally wrong with this request. When I'm looking at this part, I think this part actually, first of all, the limit is redundant because, well, what are we limiting in here? We were limiting the number of posts that we're getting, but right now this specific request is only for one post because we separated the different posts into different bundles through the iterator. So first of all, what I would personally remove is the limit, and that's just because it's redundant. It actually, in here the limit doesn't make sense, so it won't affect the end result. And I believe also in this case, actually, we can try it. I believe in this case, the kind of data that we will get will be also the same if we remove this part. And now let me check. So we removed the value and the name, but I think this part of the data we're getting by default, actually, no matter if we write it in there exactly or not. Yeah, and as you're seeing, we will get this data no matter what. So if we simplify the request like this, it will work perfectly. What I usually like to also have is to have the version of the Graph API, just so you have a bit more of a control. And because if you don't have the version, then the newest version, and don't take me for the word in here, it's either the newest version or it's the newest version that was available when you created the Facebook app. It's either one of those, but basically you have less control over which version the Graph API uses. Usually the new versions are quite compatible, so it shouldn't be a problem. But again, if you want that bit of a extra control, this is something that I would do. And now, one of the things that I would do in here in the request is definitely not get this from the data ID, but I would get it from the iterator because that's the correct way. So it iterates through it as it should. And now, what was the main problem in here, right? Is that when we iterate the data, and again, I can check the data that we get, but we get this bundle for each one of the previous bundles. That makes sense. 2 bundles in, 2 bundles out. And each one of the bundles kind of has this collection with key data and then a lot of other sub collections. And then, each one of them has a kind of nested list. So we get bundle with data. Inside of data, we have collections 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then in each of the collections, we have key pair values, so name, reach, period, lifetime, etc. But we also have another nested array, which is called values. And the only thing that's in the array of values is kind of another collection, which actually has the value. And the problem that, or the question that I got is, well, how do I get the data out of this so I can put it into Google Sheet or anywhere else, really? And Ignacio tried to solve this through iterator, but what you can see is that when you put this data into the iterator, it will take this array, which has 6 collections, and from each one of the collections, it will create a new bundle. And it will get, in this case, when we look at the output, it will separate it into bundles, but we didn't really help ourselves because, well, first of all, the information that we had, it's completely the same, just broken down now, but it's still nested. And second of all, the problem now is that for every incoming bundle, we have 6 outgoing bundles, but all the data in the 6 bundles, they shouldn't really be a 6 bundles because all the data still relates to the one original bundle, which is the bundle of the object or of the image on Instagram. So instead, what I would do, we completely delete this iterator. And instead, what I will use is set multiple variables, because we somehow need to get the variables that we will be using out of this. Now, let's say that the first variable will be number of saves, or like how many times this post was saved. And let me just show you the structure once again. So basically what we have in make is this function get, which works both for objects and it also works for arrays. Now, the way how it works is different because objects and arrays are different. By the way, funny fact, or one thing that may be a bit confusing, in this kind of naming, we're using object or array, but you know, if you're coming from programming background, you probably know what objects are. If you're coming only from make, you may be confused because, well, arrays, okay, that's used in make, but what about objects? It's something that's not very, you know, it's not something you hear on a day-to-day basis in make. And what objects are is basically what make in all the other cases. I don't know why here it's called differently, but that's what is normally a collection in make. So when I try to explain the difference, when it comes to the objects, right, they're always in the curly brackets. It's like the collections. And what objects are is that they're a key value pair. So basically you would have something like name David. Then maybe you would have a surname Gulas, right? And you would have something like this. And this is basically the object, or what normally is called collection in make. We always have a key, we always have a value that's related to that key. And in the collections or in the objects, it doesn't really matter what is the order, because the items are not kind of filtered, or the items are not separated based on the order, they're separated based on the key. So, and why am I saying that? It's because in this case, if we're filtering some object, or as I'm saying, a collection, what we will be using, or what's important, is the key. So I'm curious if I have some collection in here. I think all of those for now are arrays. We will kind of work with the data in a bit. But let's say this would be some collection, and this is very hypothetical collection. In this case, let's say we would want to let's paste this, and now it won't work because this array isn't parsed. But let's say this would be this collection isn't parsed, but let's say this would be the collection, and we would want to get David, so we would use the key to get this out of the collection. Let me actually try. Yeah, it's not parsed, so it won't work right now. How it works for array? For arrays, it's a bit different. So arrays in JavaScript and also in make, if you look at the structure, they're denoted by these square brackets. And for arrays, actually, it can be either array of numbers or it can be array of names, John, Peter. But what matters is that in arrays, the order actually matters. So, if you want to get the name of John, you would call the second item in the array. If you want Peter, you will call the third item. If you want David, you will call the first item, right? So that's just an intro into arrays and objects, because, well, the get function, which is very useful, kind of revolves around them. Now, if we look back, and let me just run this again so we get this data. If we look back in here, for instance, reach in this collection will always be in the first place, right? So theoretically, what we could do in this array is just, when we're looking for reach, take the first collection. When we're looking for comment, take the second collection that's in the array. But let's say in the future, Graph API kind of changes this up, then you would start getting a wrong result. So that's not optimal, it's suboptimal. Instead, what we would want to do in this case is, let's say we're looking for the saved posts, or like the amount of saves. What we would want to do first is, from this, to look through the array, find out which collection contains the information regarding the saved posts, which is the 6th collection. And then in this case, ideally we would like to get the final number, right? 9, but it won't be that easy yet. For now, we will be able to get the values array. So how do we do that? We use the map function, and then in a minute I will show you also the get function and how that function plays into role. So the map function, this only works for array, and kind of how to work with the map function. If you look at the description, from a complex array, we can get the information we want based on some key or some filtering, as you can also see in here in the description. And what will be very useful for us, the whole data, it's the array that contains then these 6 collections, and each one of them has other information. And the kind of mnemonic that will help you is, when using the map function, is from A, I want B when C equals to D. So in this case, from the data, I want, what do I want? I want the values, right? I want the key values. And in this case, what you would do, because it's a key, you would just write the name of the key that you can see when you kind of hover over it. So no, exactly not this. So from A, from data, I want B, I want the values when C. So what am I filtering based off? I'm filtering based on the name. So when name equals to D, and in this case I want it to be equal to saved. So this is how I build it out. And what we should get now, if I wrote it correctly, is we should get this thingy, the values array from the collection which has name that equals to saved. From A, from data, I want B, the values array, when C, when name equals to D, when it equals to saved. Now, when I run this, and by the way, I could just run the single module, but I would need to copy the data. So this is just the simplest and quickest way. And as you see, this is exactly what we get. And this was operation 1. If we look to this collection and to these values, 9. And in here, we also have 9. So we were able to map this correctly. But as you can see, it's still very nested. So we need to get it out. And now what we will use is the get function. And that's why we were using the get function. Now what we're getting in here, or that's why I was talking about the get function in the beginning. Now what we're getting in here is an array. As I was mentioning, from this mapping, we get an array, which is the ordered list of items. Now this array only has one item, which is another array inside of it. And then inside of that array, there's collection, which is also called object in JSON and in this specific function in make. And the key is value, and then the actual value is 9. So now, and I will just go through it slowly. We will be using the get function, but we will be using it multiple times. So first, we will get the first item in the array, in the first array. Let me just show you again what we get. And right now we, maybe actually, let me copy this and just show you kind of the progress, right? So we mapped the collection. We got array with that's called saved. Inside of there's collection, one collection, and now there's a value, but I already ran it once, so let me just restart. So we got the array, there's the saved array, there's one array inside of that array, there's collection inside of that collection, there's the value. Now from the first array we will get the first item, which, so from here, from this array, we will get the first item. So we will go one level inside, and we should move in the correct direction as we want to, right? So right now we don't have when we click here, we don't have array that's called 1 and then collection inside of it. Now we only have the collection inside of it, and inside the collection we have the value. So now, and let me move one step forward. Let me check actually if we need to kind of loop one. Yeah, so we still have array, and then there's one item in this array, which is the collection. So if I'm not mistaken, we need to loop again one more kind of layer inside. And yes, now we got into the collection and we see that the value is 9, but we don't care about the key value. We only want to get that it's 9. So in this case, again, I will clone the module. Normally you wouldn't have this many modules, but I'm just trying to describe it as, I guess, easily as possible, even though this is a very complicated topic. So if you have any questions, let me know, because I know that maybe my explanation is not the best. But now this is the last time that we will use the get function. And here comes the difference between object and array, because so far we've been just using it on arrays. So we were just choosing the first item in the array, and that was fairly easy because there weren't more of the items. Now what we want to do is choose it based on the key, and the key in this case is called value. That's what I was showing you. And now if I run it, what I will get, and in this case we were looking for number of the saves. In the first post that was saved 9 times, the second post was saved 5 times. And this is basically it. This is what we wanted to get, and now I will just show you how to kind of put it together. So let's say times, let's call it times saved, right? I will just copy this that I was showing. Now let me actually go kind of step by step when it comes to the metrics. So one of the metrics is likes. Then let me just see what are the metrics. So one of the metrics is views. Okay, views, reach, likes, comments. I will probably forget it. Views, reach, comments, and views, reach, comments. Sorry, it's like very late, so not very late, but it's quite late, so I'm kind of brain dead. My memory is not the best. Reach, views, likes, comments, shares, and saved. I will just call it saved just for the sake of simplicity. So views, likes, I guess reach was the first, even though this doesn't matter. Reach, views, likes, comments, saved, and shares, I believe was the last one, right? So now we're mapping or getting out all the variables, and then maybe the last thing that I would get just for the simplicity is the object ID. So the object that all of these data are related to. And because we already built this out, we can just copy it and just change what we're looking for it. So in here we were looking for reach, in here we were looking for views, in here we were looking for likes, in here we were looking for comments, and in here we were looking for shares. And now let me just double check that I named them correctly. So reach, views, likes, comments, saved, and shares. I believe I did. So let me run it. And as you can see, now you're getting all the data in, one place, and you're getting it in a way that it makes sense. So from here, from one, here you get all the different objects, all the different posts. Then in here with the iterator, you split them up. So for each post you created its own kind of way, its own bundle. And in here now for each one of those posts, you have all the information you need. So you have the ID, you have the saved amount, shares, comments, likes, views, and now you can kind of work with it further, save it in a Google Sheets or do anything else that you need. But yeah, hopefully this makes sense. Hopefully I explained it at least semi well. If you have any questions, let me know down below in the comments. And yeah, I'll be looking forward to your questions, and see you all tomorrow.